You're Welcome to Lower Moreland Board of Commissioners stated and advertised monthly meeting. Today's October 8th, 2024. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let everyone know that the board will have an executive session after this meeting is over tonight to discuss a legal matter with our solicitor. So we'd like to welcome everyone again tonight to our Township Board of Commissioners meeting. Start off by saying how important it is that you are here tonight, and your input is important to all of us. And we thank you for signing on Zoom or being here this evening and taking out the time. We really appreciate you being here. It means a lot. And we just want to say the podium is the place to address the board as a whole during public comment time. Please come up to the podium, state your name and address as clearly as possible for the record, so Leah could log that in. In the interest of everyone's time, this is a business meeting, so we do have a long agenda, A through X tonight, and we have to try to keep things moving along. So we appreciate you respecting us that we have to keep things moving along and get through our agenda items. And if each agenda item as it comes up, that would be the time if you have a public comment at the end after the board is discussing with the board and the staff that you would come up when we call for public comment to the podium one at a time. You can raise your hand. We'll start with people in the room, then we'll go to Zoom. And if public comment is over, we'll close public comment. So if you have any other additional questions or concerns that don't have anything to do with our agenda items that we're covering, the time to come up and ask, and give public comment or address the board will be at the end of the meeting, under public participation, non-agenda items. So want to, again, finally, please ask that everyone be kind and respectful. So we'll start. I am the chair of Internal Affairs. I'm going to start. My first item on the agenda is review and consider the minutes of September 10th, 2024. Commissioners, do you have any questions regarding the minutes? Okay. Is there any public comment regarding the minutes this evening? Anyone online? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the September 10th, 2024 minutes.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded to approve the September 10th, 2024 minutes. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I didn't hear any opposed. Thank you, commissioners. The motion's passed. The next item on the agenda is review and consider the October 2024 bill list. Commissioners, do you have any questions, concerns regarding the bill list?
Well, my concern is the police overtime, but I'm assuming that the payroll costs are lower because you have open slots.
That's correct. Yes, we have 3 officers that are still being trained right now, so it does require sometimes backfilling with other officers. We've had quite a few community events this month too, so it did get a little bit of an uptick with the officers being present.
And you had to make sure we have coverage.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Housen. Anyone else on the board? Any other questions regarding the bill list? Does the public have any public comment regarding the bill list? Anyone online on Zoom? Thank you. I will make a motion to approve the October 2024 bill list.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded to approve the October 2024 bill list. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No opposed. The ayes have it. Motion's passed. Thank you, commissioners. Next item on my agenda is review and consider appointment of township auditor. So in accordance with the first class township code, the township's required to appoint an auditor at least 30 days prior to the close of the fiscal year. In 2022, an RFP resulted in 3 proposals for our 2022 through 2026 audits. So staff is recommending, and the board selected the proposal from B. Bergvall and Company. And to let everyone know, they were the lowest bidder. Their 2024 audit fee be $23,000. And it's my understanding, this is just a continuation of that proposal. Am I
Correct, this is
correct?
year 3 of 5.
Okay, so you're 3 of 5. So commissioners, do you have any questions regarding this matter? Does the public have any public comment regarding this matter? Anyone on Zoom? Okay, if not, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2449, appointing B. Bergvall as the township auditor for 2024. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
If we could first have a second.
Oh, so we have a
Second.
Okay, the motion's been moved and seconded to approve resolution 2449, appointing B. Bergvall as our township auditor for 2024. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I didn't hear any opposed. Any opposed? No, the ayes have it. Thank you, commissioners. On to the next item. Give me a second to get this on. Next item is review and consider ward reapportionment settlement agreements. So we are in receipt, and Solicitor Rice received the attached signed settlement agreement and stipulation regarding the ward reapportionment appeal. So the terms are consistent with our board's direction, as the revised ward map will take effect for 2026 primary election. The first municipal election impacted by the revised map will be 2027. So I'm going to turn this over to Solicitor Rice to explain further what we have in our books.
Okay,
Go ahead. Thank you, Solicitor.
thank you, Commissioner. So what's in front of the board is a settlement agreement, just for background for anyone that's hearing this for the first time. Lower Moreland Township is a first-class township under Pennsylvania law. There's something called the first-class township code. So they elect their commissioners by wards. Some townships, second-class townships, which are most of them, don't have wards. But first-class townships have wards. And as do boroughs, Bernathen Borough would have wards, as do other types of categories of municipalities. So there's a state act called the Municipal Reapportionment Act. And that says that everybody that elects their elected officials by wards has to look at that every 10 years after the census becomes final. So Lower Moreland started talking about this probably 10 years ago, about the need to do that after the 2020 census. And that was the impetus for the township then to hire a consultant, hired a consultant by the name of Amanda Holt, who's a fairly well-known statewide expert in the field. She prepared the population mapping and made a recommendation to the board to readjust the population of the wards. The goal with ward reapportionment is to try to get the population of every ward within 5% of each other. We also found out that Lower Moreland had never done this. So all of the wards except one ward was way out of whack and quite frankly, not consistent with the state law. So as a result of that, then this would have been in 2022, prior to the 2023 municipal election, the board adopted an ordinance. It's called Ordinance 770, which incorporated Ms. Holt's recommendation to readjust all the wards, all 6 of the wards. So they were all within actually less than 5% from each other. And to try to follow natural barriers like streams or roads. So that was adopted by this board in January of 2023. It was approved by the Montgomery County Board of Elections. It was approved by the state. And then there was an appeal filed by a citizens group. I don't know, about 4 or 5 days before the hearing where it was to be approved. So that occurred in 2023. Since then, there's been substantial amount of some discovery. There's been depositions by the citizens group of the commissioners. We're at a point now where I think all the parties involved in this believe that it should be resolved. None of the claims that were in the appeals, in my view, there's no evidence of that. The board took the consultant's recommendation and did what they were supposed to do. So in terms of the settlement agreement, in effect, basically say that ordinance and that reapportionment map is approved, but it will not be implemented until the 2026 general election. For the first time, that board map, this is going to change polling places, but for 2026, it'll be implemented for that general election, and the first municipal election will be in 2027. So this election, 2025 next year, which is a municipal election, these commissioners will all run in the same wards that have existed forever. You know, they haven't been changed. And then in 2026, and the county handles all the advertising of this and updates all the records of this. The county's aware that this case is being settled. So that's what's basically the terms of the settlement agreement. And then the other issue is that the board intends to look at this again in 2030. It's a mandatory requirement. Some townships do it, some boroughs do it, many do not, and no one ever questions it. But Lower Moreland did it. Unfortunately, it got appealed, got hung in the court for a couple of years, but it's going to be ultimately approved. The parties have agreed under the terms of the settlement agreement, and the map will, for the first time, the new map will, for the first time, will be implemented for the 2026. So if anybody's interested in this, this has all been posted on the township's website. I don't know whether it's still posted, Manager Hoffman, maybe not.
Probably not.
Because it was initially proposed to be initiated in 2023. But if anybody wants copies of that map, it's available. We have plenty of copies of that map and where the ward lines are and the ward boundaries. And they're all based on census blocks. So the federal government creates census blocks. You can't split them up when you create your ward. So that's what we have to rely on when you redraw a ward. And this is at a municipal level. This is not at a state level, you know, state legislative districts or the federal level. This is just the municipal level, Lower Moreland Township.
And just one point of clarification for when this does take effect in 2026. You had said general election, because that's generally what it's called for that year. The new ward boundaries, therefore the new voting locations, if you have moved, would be for the primary of that general election.
Yes, yes, yes.
And just one other point. So, and you had said that, you know, that voting locations would change, but they would change only for some residents based
Correct.
on the new map. So not everybody, but some residents would change.
Because what we found out was that there was a difference of almost 1,000 people from one ward to another ward. I mean, it was that drastic because, you know, there's been growth for the last 50 years in this township. And, you know, the wards as they sat 50 years ago, there's a lot more people in certain areas than others. So the only way you can adjust these is to move people from Ward 1 to Ward 2 or 3 to 2 or 4 to 3. You can't go from 1 to 6. It's got to be adjacent. So the consultant we hired did a nice job. She made a couple recommendations. She has done this for other municipalities and did it for the state back in 2010, actually. I think she testified in that case. But so, yeah, not everybody will go to a new polling place. Just if you're in a different ward, as a result of that new map, you'll have to change your polling place.
So, and Solicitor, the census is a valuable tool for municipalities in that, you know, logging growth and informing us about growth. So if we see there's growth, then that would be whoever is on the Board of Commissioners,
Right.
you know, job
Right.
You know, we're going to do that, to say, hey, well, let's hire the consultant, Amanda Holder, whomever else is out there at that point in time.
Right.
And move forward.
Yeah, 2030,
Take a look again.
2030, there'll be more growth. There's some projects. We all know about the country club. Down here, there's some other projects. There'll be more residents. So, you know, there's a need to look at it every 10 years. Sometimes it doesn't matter. If you have a build out community, if you don't have a build out community, then you really need to look at it so that it's in conformance with the state act. So that's what's in front of the board. Is anybody else on the board have any questions for me?
We'll make sure we keep doing what we're supposed to do. Ready the law. Thank you, solicitor. I'll open this up for public comment at this time. Anyone in the room, would they like to address the board regarding this matter of ward reapportionment settlement agreement and what the solicitor reviewed for us? Does anyone have any public comment at this time? Sure, come on up.
Yeah, Mark and George.
Come on, thanks, so we could hear you a little better.
I'm curious to, the litigation that had to take place. What was there a cost to that the township had to bear?
Yes,
Resident wise, or,
yes,
household wise, did you have a?
yes, I do.
Okay,
I mean, Manager Hoffman probably has maybe a more exact number, but we looked at this a few months ago and it was close to $20,000
okay.
township costs for this lawsuit. The consultant was only $2,000
Okay,
who did the mapping.
all right, thanks.
Thank you for coming. Anyone else? In the room, first we'll start with. There's no one else, anyone on Zoom? Nothing. Okay. With that being said, I'll move to make a motion.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment, because I'm
Go ahead, Commissioner Pace.
$20,000. This pisses me off. We spent $20,000. I like John, but I don't want to give John $20,000 of our money, right? You got the board voted to hire Amanda for $2,000. It cost us $20,000. There's a commerce group, which is led by residents. I read the deposition. The commerce group was the so-called citizens group John referred to.
Yeah, it was a group that was formed. There was a list of names that were attached to the.
So there was 52 residents who signed it. The head of the commerce group is resident Chuck McDade. He signed off on the appeal. 52 residents signed it, all part of the Lower Moreland Democratic Committee. This is total political stunt. 52 residents never received a copy of the ordinance. That was in the deposition. And we spent $20,000 of your money. Just remember that next year. Thanks for bringing that up, Mr. DeGeorge.
Second.
Anyone else on the board before they move to this?
I want to make it clear that not all Democrats were on board with that, because I was instrumental in getting this done, so, and I'm also a member of the Lower Moreland Democrats.
I'm talking about the 52 residents that signed it, who conducted Chuck's deposition. The 52 residents who signed it didn't even know what they were signing. They didn't get a copy of it.
Well, yeah, that's something else.
Yeah, and the attorney for the commerce group deposed 7 people, produced 0 evidence of board misconduct or any type of gerrymandering. It was brought before us for election year, no doubt about it. And we just wasted $20,000. And that's a fact. So just remember that next year.
Are you making a political statement, Mr. Pace?
Can you please come to the podium?
Public comments over.
Oh, yeah, I did close. public
You
comment.
mentioned my
I
name,
closed
right?
public
Wait a
comment.
minute, public
I
comments.
closed I closed
You
the public
mentioned my
comment.
name.
This is board.
This is a legal
Please.
matter.
I
okay?
close public comment.
That's in
Chief,
court right now, okay? That's in court right now, John. You know this is, okay?
we're at.
John, but you know this is. I signed it, you signed it, Denise Kerr signed it, okay? But for allowing the commissioner to make a statement like that, he's out of bounds.
He's voting on a settlement agreement.
He's voting on a settlement agreement, but he can't make a statement like that when there's 52 other people involved here, and they're not all Democrats to the statement that he made.
Chuck, that's his argument.
Okay.
He's entitled to make a
Okay,
statement.
that's not about it's just, this is a political statement from Mr. Commissioner Pace. That's what it is, John. And if you we can open it back up.
Let's.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the settlement agreement as described.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. 5 ayes and 1 nay. Thank you. The motion's passed. Next item on my agenda is the administration report. Manager Hoffman.
Good evening. Just 2 items I wanted to report on. The first is that I wish I could say this was my singular focus, but my primary focus has been on our budget for 2025. We are working towards distributing the budget book by October 25th. So the next kind of major steps are meeting with each of our departments to build out general fund and capital proposals that we will review at our first meeting later this month. And the second item, I just wanted to let the board know that Chief Showmaker and I had met during the school board's executive session on October 1st to discuss the ANC parcel possible acquisition through ANC's annexation concept. So we had a great conversation with the school board members and requested their feedback by the end of the year. And the general premise being that it would be helpful to know, is that something that we need to continue trying to put together, or do we need to re-strategize? Regardless of how that comes together, I would be recommending that we need to have the acquisition wrapped up in the first quarter of next year, so we could get to all of the next steps that follow. We'll have much more to discuss about that, really as part of the budget process. But just wanted you to be aware that those conversations are ongoing.
Thank you both. Okay, does the board have any other questions for Manager Hoffman? Okay, any public comment for the manager? Okay, next is our tax collector report. We have our elected tax collector. Hello, Jane, I see you up there.
Thank you, Commissioner KURITZ. How are you this evening?
Good, how are you?
Hi, thanks. So collections are still continuing to be slow this time of year since the face amount and the discount have expired and everything's in penalty. So most people do wait till the end of the year. So actual collections stand at 95.95%. The face collected amount is 97.69%, and to pay them by December 31st, and I will have hours on December 31st as well. So are there any questions?
I don't have any. Does the board have any questions for our tax collector, Jane Sale? Does the public have any questions for our tax collector? Thank you, Jane. Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thanks, you too.
Next item on my agenda is my liaison report. My positions are Lower Moreland Township School District, Lower Moreland Township School District Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, and the community events. So I'll start with the Lower Moreland Township School District DEI. We don't have any meetings set yet for the year, but all the good work that the committee has done and put into place, the school district is following through with. Next was the school board. From when I reported at our last meeting, they had their public meeting on Tuesday, September 17th, and they voted on matters from their previous meeting. Their October meeting was held, their work session on October 1st, 2024. Jamie Lynch, just to give you a quick highlight, because we all see what's going on Red Line Road, spoke about what's happening out front on Red Line Road and the intersection projects and how they're working with PICO trying to peg down a road completion date. And they're really working hard with regard to getting everything straightened out. They're working with a foreman to give, to try to, narrow down a date to get this work, completed and done. You see there's a little bend in the road, and they also mentioned, how they're grateful to the township, because, there's a manhole there and it needs to be lined, they discovered. And, the Marcy is working with the township because we have some manholes that are being lined. Thank you, Steve, and the township for working with the school district for the benefit of the residents in our community. And they mentioned how this could result in some cost savings for the district, which, trickles down to all of our residents. So we always try to work together for the benefit of the community. So they were, they're always pleased with that. And he further advised that unfortunately the mast arms that are further down near the Valley Center Park Drive will be received on January 28th and be installed shortly thereafter. He wished they were coming sooner and faster, but due to the PICO utility work, he had no control over that.
What's the date on that?
January 28th. And they have a little bit of list items that that they need to complete for their final quote punch list items to close out, and they're getting close. Their next public meeting will take place on Tuesday, October 15th. And now, just to let everybody know, all their meetings are held 7 p.m. in the new high school, that black box room, and on Zoom. So, and then they're actually, I think it was just sent out like today sometime, they're having another meeting on a special meeting on October 21st at 7 p.m. A few meetings a while ago, I think it was in the spring, going into the summer, they've had a lot of meetings discussing this. They took a step back and they hired I don't want to use the word consultant, but they hired a company. These are my words to take a look at all their facilities. And because they're keeping Murray Avenue open, they're concerned, take a look at all the facilities and see, so they didn't have any surprises as what's coming up next. So that'll be that meeting, and they want to present that to the public and just, and go from there. So, next does anybody have any questions regarding that in school? They had a pretty short meeting. So, next is community events, Saturday, October 5th, which is past Saturday. We had the Fire Prevention Day, Township Open House, and Long World Police Department had an open house, and it was a wonderful community day. Thank you, Chief Ted Middleman. Thank you, Chief Showmaker. Thank you, Bob Shiley, and thank you to our Chief Scott Smith. It was a wonderful day filled with a lot of information for residents and their children and demonstrations. The LMPD had our 2 K9 dog officers, Kermit and Thor. They had 2 demonstrations. It was wonderful. And they also had like a mock car stop. And it was just to be there, to be present, to see, the interaction between the officer and the dog at a car stop. And it's just, it makes you realize how wonderful, and also how the dogs can help with these car stops or any situation. So it was amazing to watch. So in the fire companies, it was hosted right at our Huntingdon Valley Fire Company. They did an amazing job getting ready. Place is always meticulously clean, and the trucks and the kids loved all the demonstrations of putting out the fire and going through the trucks and picking up goodie bags. And we also gave out a goodie bag. We had pumpkin painting. We all the kids painted 200 pumpkins, birdhouses, and we gave out reusable bags. So we've been giving out those for almost a decade. So try to BYOB, bring your own bag into our local shops and stores. And if anyone wants a bag, contact your commissioner or send in an email to info@lowermoreland.com. We'll make sure you get a bag, a reusable Lower Moreland Township bag, and it was filled with township, environmental, and emergency management materials and some goodies for the kids. So that's about that. Our next event is a Stormwater Basics for Homeowners. It's going to be next week at the Huntingdon Valley Library, and we have 2 presenters. One is Robert Pace from Penn State, Master Watershed. He's a Master Watershed Steward, and our very own Tim Woodrow from Woodrow and Associates, and he's our township engineer. So there's a lot of great information. It's about stormwater, and how to, he's going to go through a series of. He's a great guy. We had him before. It's fabulous, And it'll be an hour to an hour and a half. They're trying to keep it as short as possible. And it's how to control stormwater on your property. And we're gonna have a lot of great information. Come to that, sign up, it's online. To sign up on our Facebook and on our website. We have 2 other events for October. It's gonna be a busy month. October 19th, Saturday, from 5:30 to 8:30 is gonna be our trunk or treat at the Public Works Yard, 3901 Keaton Road. That is always a great time for families. And just to let everyone know, we will still be collecting canned goods for Lower Moreland Police Department. So there'll be a table there as you come in. We'll collect your canned goods and we'll make sure that LMPD, you don't have to come to the trunk or treat if you don't have little kids. You don't want to wait in that line to drive through, but if you want to, it's a great time. It's a great night. And, or you could drop it off at LMPD anytime. So we give out candy and it's a fabulous time and a lot of fun. Then we also have our township's 2024 fall Halloween decorating tour. So if you think your house looks great, it's also online. You can sign up and we will send a picture and your address. It's on our website and on Facebook. We will pin your home and residents have an opportunity to tour the map at their pleasure and see all the amazing decorated homes. That's about it. Does any of the commissioners have any questions? October is a busy month. Okay, does anyone from the public have any questions or comments? If not, that concludes my agenda for this evening, and the chair recognizes Commissioner Mueller,
Thank you, President Skirts.
Chair of the Community Development Committee.
The first item on my agenda tonight is to review the sketch plan for 22 Tomlinson Road, Olympia Holdings. So I will go ahead and invite the applicants up. Welcome again. So come on up to the podium. As they're coming up, I just want to remind everybody, this is a sketch plan. So it is an opportunity for the applicant to share their plan, what they have. It's an optional part of this community development. But I think it's particularly valuable because it gives board, the township consultants, as well as the community a chance to see what's being proposed, to ask some questions, for the applicant to collect some feedback from the board and from the community and from the township consultants on the project which they're proposing. We will follow a similar format as we followed before. They will present what their current plan is. And then I will call on each of the township consultants to share the review letters with the board as well as the public. We'll go through board comments and then I'll open it up to the public comments and we'll try to wrap it up. So again, no voting tonight. It's just a chance to exchange some information and for everyone to collect information on the project. So with that, I'll let you introduce yourself and explain the current plan that you have.
Can we go back to the other?
Yes.
Can you go to the other sheet, Leah?
Good evening. My name is Zentin. I'm an attorney. I'm here on behalf of Olympia Holdings. This is Mr. Eli Kontrovitz. He's the principal of the company. With me is Mr. Herschel Patel from Hambrick. They are the engineer and they're involved with the design of the various engineering and design aspects of the proposal. So to give a little quick history on this property, my client seeks to develop this property. We originally came before the township with a different proposal. The feedback at that time was that because of the zoning and the designation of the lots, this particular lot, we were asked to go and investigate alternative uses that more closely fit the actual uses that are normally permitted on this lot. We consulted with my client and the engineer, and one of the things that we come back to the township with is to see if, and this is again a proposal that would most closely match the use that would be permitted on this property, which is manufactured home site or manufactured home and similar type use on the site with some commercial aspects. So I'm gonna let Herschel actually describe the exact setup that you're seeing on the plan before you, and then we'll be happy to answer the question. Please, Herschel.
Absolutely. So in order to devise a sketch plan for the by right use, As you see on the plan, we are proposing 55 mobile homes that you see in the red. And you know, that is gonna be in the rear part of the property around the loop area. So those would be, generally speaking, each home would be around 40 feet by 10 feet wide, so 400 square feet. You know, the purpose is for a single family or a single person to live in each trailer home. Then, you know, in the front part of the site, we are still proposing to stick with the community center, which is gonna be used for the religious use. And a daycare facility on the first floor. And an office administrative building on the second floor, where you see the blue highlighted area. Those are the two buildings. One is a community center on the left side, and on the right side is the commercial building that's gonna have the daycare on the first floor and office administrative building on the second floor. So that was the concept that we devised for most closely to the by right use of the property.
And as far as the calculation of the number of units, the access and water runoff, those basic calculations were performed.
Yes,
part of the project?
yes, I mean, just on a conceptual stormwater strategy, since this concept does not explicitly include lot of as opposed to the previous concept, you know, the impervious areas are lower, so as you see that there are some areas dedicated within the site for stormwater purposes and to manage the stormwater within the site. You know, so yeah, I mean, in the plan, there are two areas. One where you enter the site is going to be a basin. And one in the middle area where there is going to be like a play area and all that. So there'll be an underground basin in that particular area. So.
I just have a question for clarification, and I know the board will have probably some other questions, but you mentioned mobile trailer homes. Is there a distinction between mobile trailer homes and manufactured homes? Is there?
So these are not supposed to be modular homes. They are like prefabricated homes that are basically brought into the facility, and you know, they're temporary. They could be relocated as well.
But
So
are they on a foundation or are they on wheels?
They're gonna be on foundation, yes.
Okay, because that, to me, that's the difference.
They are gonna be on foundation.
Do they have a VIN number or no?
No.
That's the question on that, because some of the manufactured homes do have VINs, and they're actually mobile homes, even though they're on a permanent foundation. No.
Yeah,
it's
I
just
mean,
a straight manufactured.
So you also mentioned the word temporary. So are these temporary or permanent?
The use is intended, I mean, they are gonna stay on the site, but you know, for the purposes, I mean, they're gonna be rented out. The idea is to rent them and not to sell them, you know.
So from an ownership standpoint, it would not be a
Yeah.
permanent transfer of ownership.
So, okay, that's
So,
another question. So they're not gonna be on individual lots, right?
Correct.
They're not gonna be sold to somebody looking for affordable housing. They're gonna be owned by the owner of the property, I guess.
Correct.
so,
And then it'll be rented out to people. Okay, so it's a rental community.
so they can't be sold at all. It's a ground lease. I understand that with the owner retaining ownership.
Yes.
But the individual trailers or whatever the manufactured home, will they be for sale or only for rent by the owner?
I mean, since the land is gonna be owned by the owner,
It's gonna be for rent.
it's gonna be
Only
for
for
rent,
rent.
yeah.
Who did you say were the intended dwellers? And you mentioned the square footage, you said for single families.
But the square footage is relatively small, so it could be either for single individuals or a small family.
I mean, generally, it's only 400 square feet, so generally it's for one or two people, family, you know, I mean. A couple or a single person, you know.
Would this gonna be a lease? Would it be for a year? Is it monthly or, I mean, it's not gonna be like, you know,
It's gonna be long-term rent, long-term,
long-term,
yeah, so a year minimum.
year minimum,
Have you
okay?
done a project like this before with manufactured homes?
Did I do? The owner, I did not do. This is my first project for manufacturing.
First one, then.
I did build manufactured homes as a, but as a project like this is the first time.
So you have experience building manufacturing?
Yeah, the building itself, I have plenty of experience. But as a project like this, meaning we did job to build for somebody.
I'm asking, did you ever do a job like this where you have a manufacturer home made, produced, put on a pad and rent it out yourself? Have you ever done anything like this before?
No, just build. Just build for somebody.
Just build. Okay.
Yes, and since we're asking questions, we'll just continue the word questions. Yeah, you can. So what is the size, what's the intended size of this? So you said 400 square feet, so these would be, they would all be similar, is that what the proposal is?
Yeah, I mean, all of them are the same size. I mean, bare minimum 400 square feet. It's not gonna be stacked on each other. They're gonna be single story. And so it's not gonna be like 400 and 400. It's only gonna be 400 square feet.
10 by 40 is what you said, correct? For the dimensions?
Yeah, 10 by 40, yes.
So basically a convex container, one of the larger shipping containers.
Yes, correct.
If you don't mind me asking, so it'll have a bathroom, a kitchen, is it 1 or 2 bedrooms, or?
It will be like a living area, like a studio. It's like gonna be a living area, one living area / bedroom, 1 bathroom, 1 small kitchen.
What about sewage?
Yeah, there will be sanitary lateral that will tie into each of them. We will provide the tie-ins and provide a main for everyone to connect to. We'll be doing a sewer extension, yes.
And on the calculations that you came up with, so remind me again, what is the size of the property?
Is roughly 10.4 acres.
And maybe this is a question for, Engineer Woodrow, is there a limitation on the size for manufactured homes for the property? And if so, for the density calculations for these trailer modules, how is that calculated? Because, the property is 10 acres, and then we have this wetland stream that runs through, a big portion of the property, and then there's separate use, which is the daycare and the community center. Are they calculated based on just the spot that's the acreage, that's the living area versus the entire area? How is that calculated? And what is the area of where these modular manufactured homes are going to be?
Yes, so I mean, there is a zoning table I put together on the next sheet. If you scroll down, so those were some preliminary numbers and calculations we did. We'll zoom in on that. So basically, I mean, reading the zoning table and reviewing it, basically lot coverage was one of the criteria that I think you can occupy more than 30% of the lot by building coverage. So, we did some preliminary calculations and put it on the table there. I think we are not occupying more than 25% of the lot with any building coverage. So, as I stated, individual dwelling units are only 400 square feet. So even if you do 55 trailer homes, we're not covering up the lot with, roof surface areas, if I was to say.
So the footprint of each building, even if you calculate it together with 55, would not take up more than 20% of the overall.
22,000 square feet.
But correct me, there's a density calculation that is based on not necessarily the square, not necessarily.
It's in front.
Okay.
60 units per acre.
Okay, and then how did you calculate, the question is, how did you calculate that? Is it based on the total 10 acres? Or was it based on the acreage of the spot where these units are going to be placed?
Since we are not proposing a subdivision of the lot, we are basically, the lot is owned by one person, so we are basically using the density of the whole lot. So what we're allowed to put on the lot is, if that answers your question.
And there's some, based upon the definition of density, they do have to subtract out some environmental concerns on the property. So they don't maximize full density on the property because there is a stream that runs through the property.
Right, so it would likely be less than what the calculation was based on the stream, the wetlands, the daycare.
Yes.
The community center would have to be subtracted out for the density calculation.
I'm not sure about the daycare and the commercial building, but definitely the environmental impacts on the property would have to be subtracted out.
Yes, so just to answer, so 50-foot buffer area around the street has been deducted during the initial preliminary sketch plan calculation.
And Commissioner, one other, I guess, consideration is it's proposing multiple principal uses on the property. And this district, like others in Moreland, does permit more than one principal use. So it would go through a whole series of kind of zoning review considerations to get to a net buildable site area to determine the residential density. But then there would be other factors that come into play, like total lot coverage, building coverage, protecting those natural features, things like that. That would all go into the consideration of how many other things could you put there, such as the two other principles.
So while we're asking questions, is there an actual number of people you're trying to fit into this property? Are there, 50 families you're trying to accommodate? Is there a certain number that you're trying to get to?
Well, this house is ideal for a family with one, maybe two children, the most.
Right.
Most probably is one. So we have 50 families with one child, maximum two. 3 people.
Is that what you'd like, 50 families, to
Yeah.
accommodate 50 families?
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware that there's other types of manufactured homes that you could use other than 40 by 10 mobile home? There's a
Yes.
whole bunch of other things.
Yes, we are, but I'm coming from investment perspective. And I have to calculate everything that goes into it,
Right.
all the expense and everything, project to be not in jeopardy. And this is one of the best models that we were able to put into the plan.
And what kind of rent were you projecting to get from?
What kind of a rent?
What kind of rent were you projecting?
So rent for a house like this will be probably anything between $1,200 to $1,500 months.
Can I ask a question? Is there a company that makes what you're talking about? That we could take a look at?
Yeah, but we can send you also.
I would love to see that. It is, I've seen all different types. Is this one going to have like a little loft if you're saying 1 to 2 children? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I thought we didn't make final decision on whether we're gonna use the company or we're going to build them ourselves. We are developers, we build housing in the city.
Okay.
We build hundreds of units a year. We didn't make clear decision whether we're going to get it from the company ready or we're going to make it on our own. But we can send you definitely some samples.
And the exteriors?
Exteriors could be anything from siding, small stack, or or something that not for long term, like for 100 years, like brick, something more that has to be relocated will be relocated.
You're planning on stick construction now on this? Are you planning on stick construction on this, like actual timber, or are you planning on bringing in something pre-manufactured out of?
So I just said we didn't make that decision yet.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we it's also has to do with the price and everything. But I guess we can make that decision closer to approval or your reviews.
It seems like you're looking at all options.
Yeah.
This is a question maybe for the fire marshal, from the standpoint of 400 square feet, 1 bedroom, 1 kitchen, 1 bath. Is there a limit or a guideline or how many people should actually live in that space?
We'd have to do some research in the code between property maintenance code and the fire code. We have to look at it again. Because I'm just getting that information now.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the childcare facility and community center, what you're envisioning, who's going to run it? Is the community center open to the public, or is it open just to
No, absolutely. I'll give you a brief, and the client had a vision basically with the community center, because a lot of, he's himself a resident of Lower Moreland. And, based on his relatives, he wants to basically do something with religious purposes for the community center, and he's intending to keeping it open for the public. So for the community center, if I'm not wrong, Eli, that was the intention, right? Keeping it open to the public. And the daycare facility was also an attempt to target daycare for the children, who are, and the office administrative building has, basically the second floor would be the office administrative space that may be used by the client himself or public.
There's a necessity for office space.
But the front part of the thing was basically purpose for public use more so than residential use.
And for the daycare, what were you envisioning in terms of number of people number of kids that would be part of the daycare, or the number of families? And I'm asking the question based on traffic coming in and out.
So the regulations under the state is 30 square foot per child. So roughly this daycare is about for between 70 to 80 children. If you minus common areas, hallways, and it's actually 35 square foot per child. Minus all the common areas is about 70 to 80 children.
70 to 80 children.
Is the maximum you could hold.
In a 2,000 square foot area.
It's not, it's more than 2,000. It's actually
4,800.
It's 4,800.
4,800 for the day.
So you have 35, you have about 2,500 for 70, 80 children, and the rest is, kitchen, bathroom, that does not count that. We have to deduct that.
Tim, is there any other solutions besides basins? Basins are terrible.
Yeah, Joe, I always like to caution the board at spending too much time looking at a plan when we have this kind of early sketch. I think the questions the board is asking tonight are really appropriate to let the board know the concept behind what's being illustrated. There is going to be a lot of modification to this plan if it is to go forward to meet our requirements for all the things that Frank mentioned, all the stormwater, traffic, there's a great variety of other details to be worked through. But to answer your question, yes, there's other options for underground storage of stormwater runoff. I think Herschel mentioned that they're looking at the possibility of doing underground storage under that center playground area. The most efficient storage and treatment of stormwater comes through an above ground basin. It's what we use most often because of its efficiency. Underground basins are less effective when it comes to water quality improvement, and they're much more expensive to build. So there is, but that's it's kind of industry wide. No, that's not a secret for sure.
Yeah, no.
But I do caution that, the site plan is, again, a concept. I think there's a lot of items in our ordinance that would need to be addressed before a preliminary plan could be presented to the board. I think the purpose of tonight is to hear these kind of concepts, rental community, target audience, what the buildings that are the non-residential uses are proposed to be occupied by and for. I think that's the real goal of tonight's conversation, without getting too deep into looking at specifics of the site plan.
And Engineer Woodruff, since you have the microphone, why don't you go through your report, the highlights for us?
Yeah, and thank you, Mr. I think in my review, I'm talking about those things that would be obligations of the developer if they were to bring forward a preliminary plan. Things like road improvements, pedestrian connections, all the stormwater conversations, the physical design of the streets that provide access to the units, traffic study for the daycare and the office spaces. Again, buffer yards, the environmental resource restrictions need to be defined a little bit better. Recreational spaces, all those kinds of things are the engineering aspects of the plan that are acknowledged by Herschel, but not yet designed.
Exactly.
And so I think that we point those out as kind of cautionary tales that there is some work to do. But again, more about concept of use. You know, the smaller, single family, whether it's modular, pre-manufactured, mobile, whatever that construction eventually is, it is a very small unit on a leased piece of ground. That is a rental community is what we're learning tonight. I think more. I don't think that's what's being presented.
Township planner, Frank.
Yes, Commissioner, you'd like me to go up to the podium or can I just? Okay, sorry. Thank you and good evening. The discussion and Tim's comments probably addressed most of my comments. One item that I heard during this initial discussion was that there was consideration for a stick-built structure on the property. John, I think we have to look at that in terms of definition of manufactured homes versus a stick-built, because now you're getting into a single-family home, and single-family dwellings are not permitted within the zoning district. So that's something that I think we need to keep on the forefront and make sure that we fully understand what the proposal is. The one thing that we did not talk about this evening is that the manufactured home park is a conditional use within this district. So that would require the applicant to submit a conditional use application, similar to what we did to Philmont Flats, right? That went through that whole process. At that time, the commissioners would have to decide if there's any impact to the community. You know, what's the impact to the school? What's the impact to the fire, to the police, right? To water, sewer, transportation network. And does the project fit within the township? And does it not impact the township to an extent where it becomes a burden on the entire municipality, right? So that was a process that they would have to go through before they even get to the land development plan. So that would be the first step in this process.
Yeah, and Frank, let me just so I'm sure council understands what that is. That's sort of like going to the zoning hearing board, but it's this board is the hearing board. So it's a quasi judicial hearing. You swear in witnesses. There's testimony, and then you've got to bring your proposed use within the ordinance requirements. So you would have to address in that hearing all the zoning issues that are raised, that Tim's raised, that Frank's raised, you know, how are you going to comply with that? I mean, there's subdivision comments in here too. That's not really so much for a conditional use hearing, but all those zoning issues. You know, size of the road and things like that. How many? So that's a, you know, that could be more than one night of testimony too. That could take some time because any resident can come in and become a party to that type of a hearing. But the board appoints a hearing officer. You know, that's how that would happen. There has to be. I mean, that's really the first procedural step before you even get the land development. Sorry, Frank.
Nope, that's a good explanation, John. Some additional comments. You know, within a manufactured home zone, nothing can front on the existing road, right? So Tomlinson is an existing roadway. So what they're proposing here is frontage development between the community center and the office building, right? So we kind of need to work through that situation where we are fronting and we are accessing onto Tomlinson for those proposed uses. We talked about the dimensional requirements, right? No lots are proposed. So we have to kind of take a look at density and subtract out what needs to be subtracted out and make sure that they meet the density requirements for the project. Tim mentioned open space. We talked about this at the Planning Commission, right? In my opinion, the plan is kind of lacking connectivity with open space, internal trail network. It's accessed by one access drive, right? If there's an incident at that access drive, the entire development will be kind of shut off for access, right? So again, that can be discussed at the conditional use process. Internal, external pedestrian mobility, right? Or is the township looking to do improvements along Tomlinson Road? Are you looking at having sidewalks installed? These are all items that need to be fleshed out as we progress along. The plan was reviewed by the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission gave some feedback. Commissioner, I believe you were at that meeting, so you kind of heard what the Planning Commission had to say and their feelings towards the plan and the concept. But this is a use that is permitted within the zone, and they do have the right to proceed. And they go through that process through the conditional use hearing and then move on to the land development plan. So those are kind of my key comments. Tim mentioned some of my other ones about open space. The commissioners talked about some of my other comments already, so I won't take up much more time here. But if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
One of the key things that I see in your comments is right now it's proposed as a gravel road throughout the community. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So from a firefighting standpoint or public safety, that's an absolute nightmare and that could not occur.
No, and I think based on the last feedback, we actually have upgraded, we are gonna do an asphalt road and not a gravel road. That was just an initial concept that we put together to just do the bare minimum impervious coverage calculations, but yes, we are open to doing an asphalt roadway.
And also regarding the interconnection of all the units, are you planning on, since there's community center, to have sidewalks and everything interconnected there where people have the access?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if in the central area, we are proposing like the common area, the play area, so most of the trailers or everything from the roadway will have access to them. We just haven't got to that sort of technical phase yet. We just wanted to put a concept together, get you guys feedback, and then we can definitely make it a much more comprehensive and a technical plan,
Yeah, and I had some questions about the common areas in general. So that was some of my questions. And so you had mentioned with the community center open to the public, that's intention. Can you share a little bit about like the types of programming you might envision? And I asked more to understand sort of, is it like how many people might you expect to come to those and how many people might be? You want to come up here?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So the community centers normally for religious studies, prayers, some social events. It's hard to say how many people will come, but normally those events are between 10 to 50 people, sometimes 100. It's not such a big building to fit so many people. Normally we probably appear at least once a week, maybe a few times a week, depends on holidays and events. But this is it.
And then for the common area in the more residential area, is it your expectation to also be open to the public, or would that be private in the sense of that'd be more for the people who live there, have access?
That's for the people who live.
Yeah, there'll be more of residential use, like for the community that lives in that. Yeah, north of that switch basically would be more private use. Understood.
Jumping back, I'm reviewing Fire Marshal Shelley's note as well, and he's recommending sprinklers within the community center and possibly within the whole community. Is that something you guys would be in favor of?
So community center should not be a problem. We do have a difficulty to do sprinklers at the mobile homes. It will involve enormous extra cost. And practically it's pretty much very hard to do.
You just walk from here today, you get out the door.
Something like that.
But the same thing for the child care facility, you have no issue with that?
Yeah, commercial, we don't have problem. Community center commercial. And it's good also, it's much safer. We built a sprinkler in the city basically for every single home. Because the city regulations for any new construction, so we're pretty familiar with this.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Can I ask a question regarding the community center? Will you be renting that out for say bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, and for weddings?
Yes. Yeah. That basically will be run by community.
Okay.
Community will rent it out for the.
And then a question regarding the daycare, is that going to be just during the week, or will it be nightly, weekends and holidays, or will it be set hours, you think?
It's normally during the week.
For the week for people that are
It's
working?
not night program. In general, it's very hard to get night program from the state. For the
Okay.
license, it's almost impossible. It has to be different type of facility.
So it's working families?
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't tell, how many parking spaces are on the plan for the community center and daycare?
It's on the plan, but I mean, the total number of parking spots, including the residential, is 94. And I think minus 57, so about 40.
Yeah, I think it's 44.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken.
So, in front of the mobile, home that you're building, will that, can I park one car or two cars in that driveway?
It really plans of space for two, maybe three cars, and we will
Okay.
make it at least for one, but as a space, it's a lot of space. Plus also the road itself, you know, which is the circle around, it's pretty wide, you know, can park with it as well.
Yeah, each home will have a dedicated one space, bare minimum.
Okay, minimal one space.
Yeah.
Okay. The gravel road, it's now gravel that you said you will asphalt. How wide is it? Do you have it on this plan?
Currently it is 34 feet wide
34 wide.
and a total 50 foot of right of way. So the other 8 foot sidewalk on each side. It's a 50 foot right of way and 34 feet width of the cartway.
Okay, so if there's visitors and they can't park exactly in someone's driveway, there'll be a little bit of room.
Yes,
There.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, because I think with 34 feet cartway, there is enough space for two-sided parking. If need to be.
Okay, thank you very much for answering my questions. Any other questions?
I have some questions.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm confused because the first plan was like the Hermitage in Gladwin. I mean, it was like 3-story, gorgeous, you know, I don't know. what the-
Townhome community.
Townhome community. And then you went from that to a 400 square foot mobile homes. Now, manufactured homes does not necessarily mean a 400 square foot mobile home. And you want to put your, you know, your community in these. I'm just confused about how you went from one place to the next, and, you know, is this really what you want?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, I'm confused too.
Okay.
But we propose, I think, great plan, and for some reason, you know, we explain and we address it in most of the issues. But for some reason, we got amazing pushback. I don't know why, because there's one agenda here is to develop and build housing for the community. And we got message actually from you that go to the Buy Right project. So
What you got the message from us was that the density was too high, and that you might want to consider manufactured homes. But a 400 square foot mobile home is not the only way to go with a manufactured home. There's lots of other ways you could do that, and this density is also extremely high. And very land intensive, I think, for the property that you have. I mean, what you have is up on a hill. It's got some beautiful natural features that you're going to have to take into account. We're going to have to worry about runoff to the, you know, we're trying to set you up to be good neighbors. And if I'm not sure that either one of those plans does that for you. I'd love for you to sit down with our guys one more time and tell them what you really want. And then maybe we can come up with something that everybody can agree on. Because I don't really, I may get in trouble for this, but I don't really believe this is what you really want.
sounds like a deal. Thank you so much.
I had one other question. Right now, I forget what this property looks like. There's a road that comes in where you have, how does the road get back to the back part of or how does the driveway, or I'm not sure what they have, that gets the back part of the property, that where you have the daycare center, is there a bridge there that goes over the street?
So,
what is there now? And you would be getting rid of that, I guess, in
yeah,
this
so
plan.
we will not use the bridge because we have to invest a lot into it. But right now you have on the right top corner, you have an entrance to the property. This is the only entrance to the property where you see right now the a commercial building in the center.
Right.
And that road goes all the way up and then circles and goes down. So it's one entrance right now.
Yeah, and that's why the reason I'm asking that is I'm trying to figure out on some of the comments that came back from township planner in that, likely what would be required, in my understanding of the code, you can keep me straight here. If it's sprinkler, then maybe one road would be sufficient, but if it's not sprinklered, and I think you said that it would be cost prohibitive to do that, then we're looking at 2 roads. So I'm just trying to figure out how you're gonna get 2 roads in there, if you need to get 2 roads based on the configuration of the property, where you want the community center, the daycare, everything else that you have going on here.
Yeah, an original plan, actually, when we proposed the first plan, we looked into it, we made road pretty big to avoid the sprinkler under the code. We also not so clear, but at least address that issue. And we put extra fire hydrants, for the fire department, basically on every corner of the development. I don't know from the code perspective.
Yeah, I think on the previous community plan, we had put 3 hydrants within the property to address that fire marshal's comments. And particularly speaking for this plan, I think we were considering a temporary or a secondary access point from that cul-de-sac that belongs to the north, south of the property, a second access point from that cul-de-sac that belongs to the residential community. South of us, we are considering that as a secondary point or a temporary sort of access for the fire marshal or the fire trucks from that point. So if we were to bring in a road, you're looking at least 2 or 3 trailer homes gone. If we bring the road to access that current access we were proposing, but yeah, that was our strategy if we were to move forward with it.
And did you consider this plan and the roadways that are, I think you said 34 feet wide, did you consider how these trailers are gonna get in here? Is that a sufficient width? Because I'm assuming that these homes would come in assembled. That's the one plan. They're gonna come in on probably a 53 foot trailer that's extra wide, and I know the road would have to accommodate that. Is this plan taking into account for the extra width of vehicles that are close to 60 feet long altogether?
Correct. So we did a WB 67 analysis. I mean, I am showing a truck that size entering from Tomlinson. We also did some rough workout in the thing when we were setting the radius for the roadway to see if they can make that turn. And we tried to make the hard turns, and yes, a large vehicle. Huh?
It looks tight.
It is tight, but it'll make it. I mean, based on the mathematics of it.
And it's also only if we choose to purchase mobile homes rather than building them ourselves. That's we also did not determine yet.
I don't want to speak for Chris, but I'm sure our township manager, but I'm sure they're more than happy to sit down with you guys and try to work something amenable out.
So I believe that Solicitor Rice kind of pointed to this earlier, where maybe a first part of that conversation is looking at Article 2 of the zoning ordinance, which has the definitions for this district and the uses that are permitted in it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to misspeak during this meeting, so I'm not going to opine about what is a mobile home, what is a manufactured home, and what is permitted, what isn't in the district. But I think that's a big part of it.
Where are you guys?
Real quick.
Go ahead.
The concern that I have with the kind of broad mandate to work with a property owner on what they desire to do is that I think at this point, with the number of conversations that we've had, as a staff and consultants, we are limited by what the code permits. I don't think that we can give feedback in good faith to the owner to say, hey, here's the version that you should go to the board with, and then that's going to yield a zoning text amendment and all the things that follow.
Oh, that's certainly not what I meant.
So, and not insinuating that, but in terms of asking them what they want compared to maybe working within what is permitted once we have a better idea of what those zoning definitions allow. I think the broad point that you made of, is this the reaction to coming in with a by right use? Or is it a slightly more extreme version of that because under the definitions, there is something closer to the original proposal that might be a permitted use?
Right.
I think I would task you guys with react to that first. Let's look at those definitions, see if there's a version that is kind of accomplishes the goals of the first plan, but is more in line with the zoning district. And then that is where we as a staff and consultants can have a productive conversation.
Right.
I don't think that we can like sit down and help draw things out because there's too many iterations of that. That would be irresponsible for us to get involved.
Are there any other questions for the board?
Yeah, I got another one. Secondary access that you were talking about possibly tying into, where is that going to? Buttercup or Tracy?
I mean, if you see on the south border of the plan that, the two houses that, it's really difficult to see on that plan, but if you zoom in on
It's on the right side.
yeah. Not there, the left bottom cul-de-sac, you see the semicircle down?
So that would be Buttercup.
Yeah, the Buttercup,
Is what they're
yes.
talking about putting into.
Is it down here?
No, other side to your left, up to your left.
Yeah, right there. It is,
Oh,
you're right.
Now right to the bottom.
Yeah. Right point.
Oh, well, then I'm reading this plan wrong, looking at how it's laid out. I thought it was up here.
Well, do you guys have any questions for us?
No, we would like to, so. Public comments if there's no other.
I just have two things that don't have to be answered because we may or may not have the answer, but it's something I want to find out. Would it be public trash or private trash is one. And two, based on the current zoning, the tax implications without them doing a subdivision, do they have special taxes because they're this special use, the way they're zoned? So if we do have the burden of 50 families with 2 kids living in 400 square feet, take them into our schools.
I heard 100 students.
And they pay less tax because it's in this area. Does that get reassessed when this project's done by the county? How would that work?
There's no special tax. The county's gonna tax whatever gets built there, unless it's exempt. I mean, there is a religious component to the community center, right? Will that be owned by a religious organization or? Okay, so that may be a tax exempt property.
Okay.
Maybe the daycare, if it's run by a religious organization, that may be tax exempt.
What about all the home sites? Who are they gonna be owned by?
Me, the owner. That's all taxes.
What was that?
That's all taxes, so we keep those down.
It's not gonna be exempt.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's gonna be treated like any other. property.
One of the
Nothing special.
questions I was raised at the planning commission meeting, which we do want to address for the commissioners, is that the planning commission did mention to us perhaps 55 plus type use partially or fully on this site would alleviate one of the biggest concerns of this township, which is children in the school district. So we have already started some preliminary discussion on that. So that'll be something we will be meeting with the township manager on as well. I think I always hear each time I come before the board here in Lower Moreland, one of the biggest concerns of the community, the township, is addition of children. Right? People, when you hear families, nobody's opposing families coming, but I hear school board burden repeated in every meeting. So we are cognizant of that, and we're going to work with the township manager on a proposal perhaps to minimize that burden, because I think that is one of the, when we came with the original proposal, I think the biggest pushback we received at that proposal was the concern about the size of families with the number of children that would have to be addressed through the school district. So we are working on that issue as well within our own team in trying to resolve that as much as possible.
When you were here last time, I recommended that 55 plus again when you're in front of the commissioners.
Yes.
And that would be a project that I could see other members getting behind, even at the size that you guys were at, not quite the density, but the size structures.
It doesn't mean that our first proposal will put the burden on schools. We address that as well. This is housing for the community. I live in Huntingdon Valley and I do not send my children to local school because of religious reasons. I have to send them to private school. But as an option.
Is there a way legally we can make them not age restricted, but we can't take their kids in our school district?
No.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't have found out all the questions.
Unfortunately not. I'll be happy if we can do it.
The other issue that you're gonna hear too is stormwater, so I don't wanna forget that. Are there any other questions from the board? Cause I wanna just move it along because I think it's a concept and it gains some feedback. I'd like to invite the public, if there's any questions from anybody here tonight or via online. Okay. Any questions from the room? Come on up. I know you guys can take a seat.
Mark George, Dale Road. I just had a couple of comments actually. It is the schools. It's the issue of that. Sure, it's going to be 120 more. Let's talk about that. And be realistic. It's not going to work with the buildings that we have, with the capacities that we have now. And you can't get a guarantee that they won't just into the law in schools. I might ask, what would be the rent? Can I rent one of these dwellings? I apply to rent and live in there? Yeah, your homes that you're.
Yeah, so the moment, so the.
I can apply.
Yeah. Public comment.
Yeah, address us.
Conversation.
Well, okay.
After the meeting, you can talk.
Oh, all right.
Okay, you Dan.
One sec, I'm for one question. And what
What my plan. Will be forward.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, so we don't want to confuse them.
No, I just.
In the schools. To occur first. Are there any other comments from the room? Yep. Oh, go ahead. Please go ahead.
Is it my turn or is it the gentleman who's at the podium?
Not yet, Laura. You'll be after we're done the comment in the room.
Understood.
Brian Bennett, 2702 Berry Lane. A lot of moving targets tonight.
I've suddenly lost sound. What is going on? Oh,
Can you hear us, Laura?
yes, I can hear you now.
Hi.
Everything was fine until Mr. George got up and then it went silent. You can hear me fine?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay, great. Ruth touched upon, Commissioner Housen touched upon my question a couple of months ago when the gentleman presented their sketch plan. I think the message I heard was that the major motivation for the development was for members of their congregation. And that's what I heard. And now suddenly it's 400 square feet, basically studios, which doesn't sound like that's the same target audience. Does the owner of the property expect that the majority of the units would be rented by congregation members? Only because, I mean, I think 400, I don't live in a big house, but my living room is about 400 square feet. It's really small. It almost feels like a tiny house concept to me, or something that the city might build for homeless vets, which I'm not opposed to. It doesn't seem like the same target audience would want to live in a 400 square foot modular. And my other only small comment about the sketch plan was that I found it odd that the units are end facing the street rather than front facing the street, which would mean as you drive through, you're just kind of looking at the end of like the narrow end of each unit, which, you know, aesthetically isn't the most pleasing. Anyway, that's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Hello.
Wait, one more. There's somebody else.
Hi.
We have someone in the room that wants to speak, and then we'll take your comment online. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. My comments basically are the same thing. I was thinking, Anne Latch, 2997 Pine Road, Huntingdon Valley. My comments kind of go on with what you were saying, Ruth, as far as like the type of housing. 400 square feet, as the person said, sounds very small. And I just heard someone saying mobile. And that's concerning to me. I'm picturing like a trailer park as opposed to, yeah. And to me, we have the Philmont Flats next to be followed by a trailer park. You know, that's just, you know, that's my concern. I don't, as far as like housing, nice housing for people, that's fine. That's beautiful. You know, new people in the community, that's fine. But as far as like a trailer that's mobile, to me, I think you will have community opposition to that. At least the people who live in that area. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. But we'll take online comments now.
Hello. Commissioner?
Can you please take your name and address?
Howard Glickman, 1022 Twin Silo Lane in Huntingdon Valley. And I have some comments. First of all, I heard 55 units at $1,200 a month rent. If you took the $1,200 number and you multiplied it by 55 times 12 months a year, you're at $800,000 worth of revenue for this trailer park, basically. And the township would be getting no tax revenue because if the entire site is zoned as a religious facility by one owner and they have no tax burden, and we're providing them services such as trash removal and other stuff like that. And it's a big burden for the township. I understand that their kids won't be going to Longwood schools, but I have another concern as well. I'm not asking questions. And I know in this community that they're from, they have an average of many more than 2 children per family. How are they going to find 55 families that have 1 or 2 children and limit 400 square feet to 3 or 4 occupants? We have 2,700 square feet and we get each other's way. That's about all I have.
Thank you for your comment. Any other comments?
No.
Okay, unless there's any other final comments from the board, I'm going to conclude this item. I think, thank you for coming in again. Thank you for bearing with us.
Thank you for having us.
And I'm sure we'll hear from you soon. The next item on my agenda is
Thanks, guys.
the zoning code enforcement. So I'll invite zoning and code officers, Jill or Ted, if you'd like to come up and just give your report.
Hello. For this month, we had 54 permits, 167 inspections, 12 UNOs. The sales trailer for ND is going to be getting their UNO soon, so then they'll have people going in there for purchasing of the rest of the homes. We went to court for some things this month, and me and Ted attended a PASO meeting.
Any questions? Thank you.
I want to thank Jill and Ted for taking care of the SEPTA property. It looked horrible. They contacted them, it was like 5 feet long and tall across from time animal line. Thank you, I appreciate it. There was a lot of people complaining.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The last item on my agenda is my liaison report for the Pennypack Ecological Restoration Trust. This past month, they had their quarterly meeting, and for the most part, it was just an update on the year's activities. 2 things that I will mention that are coming up on October 19th, there's a hayride, which is supposed to be like the hayride of the area. So I think there's still tickets that are available, but I do know that it sells out early. And then on November the 8th, they're having their annual ball. This year's theme is it's a red and white. It's the red and white ball, and it's November the 8th. So if you're interested in either of those things, check out their website. You'll be able to register and attend as you feel necessary. If you want to.
Our next chair recognizes Commissioner CANALE, Chair of the Public Safety Committee.
Thank you, President Kurtz. The first item on my agenda for tonight is the LMPD conditional offer. Last month, we made an offer to another person that didn't work out. Chief Smith is recommending a conditional offer be made to Michael Longo. Chief Smith, do you want to state anything else?
Yeah, I'll just say, yeah, Michael's a Bucks County native, 25 years old, so no prior police experience. This is a new one for us at Aiken, at least. Did very well on our process, finished high up there, so we're very happy to have him pending, of course, the completion of those conditional offer. So, gonna go snap over the other one, but that's okay. So
It happens. Any questions from the board? Anything from the public? I'm gonna make a motion to make a conditional employment offer to Michael Longo.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded to make a conditional employment offer to Michael Longo. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. Thank you, Commissioners. Motion's passed. We welcome Michael Longo to the department.
Next up on my agenda is the authorization to acquire 2671 Huntington Pike. We learned that the property at 2671 Huntington Pike was listed for sale on Wednesday, September 25th. The property adjoins 2683 Huntington Pike, which the township already owns. Separately, we continued discussions to acquire the ANC parcel on the other side for 2683. Parcel is 0.78 acres and has 117 linear feet of frontage on Huntington Pike. While the overall size likely is not significantly meaningful for the future firehouse project, the extra Huntington Pike frontage would be helpful to separate access for civilian vehicles and emergency vehicles. It also makes building additional uses on the site more feasible. The property is currently listed for $649,000, which is more than I would recommend the board pay for this property. It's agreeable to adopt a resolution this evening. The staff will have an appraisal completed to help set market context. We can use the appraisal to see if we can reach an agreement with the seller on price. If successful, we can then proceed with a declaration of taking and settle the matter amicably. And let's open this up for discussion. Anything from the board?
Commissioner CANALE, this is your specialty. And in going down this route, this will help us to be able to obtain the appraisal of the property to see, the current listing now, to see what the true appraisal is of the property and what it's worth and how we can move forward.
So as Chris laid it out, the memo that he prepared on this, which I just read, yes, the next step will be to get an appraisal, see what the fair market value on the property will be, and then see if we can proceed based on what that appraisal would be.
Okay, thank you.
Do you envision that, at least in, it's gonna take some time to, to build a firehouse and do some things, and, we've been talking about, moving more towards, better coverage for both. Is this a space that if we had this house that we could use for overnight and be able to meet our goals for response times that, because, this is a full functioning house, right? So could we use it for boarding, some of our emergency staff?
So I'll address it. Right now, we have issues at nighttime in Huntingdon Valley. They have no sleeping quarters or facilities for members to respond in the event of an emergency. This is in proximity where they could make it to the station quickly and be able to get another piece of apparatus out in a reasonable amount of time compared to volunteers coming from home that may take 8, 10 plus minutes to get there. You're literally probably about a minute and a half travel time from that location to their firehouse right now. So in the meantime, could that be temporarily used to house staffing for there and or Bernap and whatever would be needed, which will both be operating as Feathersmill Fire Company as of January 1? Yes, it strategically could enhance our coverage in the meantime until the new facility is built, in my opinion. I'm going to throw that out to Chief Showmaker to see if he's in concurrent or in agreement on that.
Yeah, I think there's liability to that. I believe that can house some staff that can respond if needed. But any caution, I would say, in foul weather, winter months, it might be a little bit more challenging. But in the meantime, while we work towards that new facility being put in the ground and operational, I think it would be a positive for us.
There's certainly a lot of parking at the property, so that's a plus.
Yeah, with the current acquisition, if we're putting all these parcels together, the additional frontage definitely would be nice. It allows us a little bit more options when it comes to the build out of the new facility, as stated by Chris. Any other questions from the board members?
With the additional building that you mentioned can be put on this land or we acquire the other properties. We hear a lot about the fire department. Would it be ideal to have a fire/police station in one? Is that kind of what the additional building is? Or
I'll defer that to Chris because I know he's going to answer this.
So the answer is that the more land that we have up there, the more that we can do with that for the future uses. The biggest hurdle, and we don't know a definitive answer today, is what is the cost to do any of that? So kind of
construction wise.
Yes. So going kind of through a methodical process, we know we need to build the fire rescue station. When we meet with construction management and bring on an engineer and an architect to design that project, we want to be mindful that whatever we design for the fire rescue station, we want to find out what else could we put on that property so that if it's at the same time, if it's 5 years in the future, if it's 20 years in the future, making a decision now that doesn't handcuff us from making a good decision later is the goal. It's until we put out for bid and get construction pricing, I don't know what I can recommend. We did all of the discussion at the community groups meeting as to kind of what we do with the tax structure when it comes to the things we need to do in the interim for fire, ambulance, and how we can leverage the debt service millage. Anything beyond that just for the firehouse does not currently have a funding source. So some of it would also just be the tolerance for the additional revenue that would be necessary to offset the construction cost. We'll continue to build out a process that doesn't preclude this board, any future board, for making a decision at the time that you can. I just didn't know the answer to that today.
Okay, that was good, good answer.
Well, it's super unique. This property went for sale and it's connected to the property that we own. And then the other property that we are acquiring. And I want to thank Commissioner Pace, who saw it right in the summer. Thank you, Commissioner Pace, for alerting us to that.
I'm not a real agreement.
I know, we just drove by and thank you.
Our realtor didn't notice.
No, I didn't notice that one. Yeah. Any other questions from the board?
I just want to make it clear that this does not obligate us to purchase this property. We're just gonna
Just
look at it
information
and look and
purposes
see
right now.
if the amounts are reasonable and within our.
Exactly. This task would, or this step would put the board in the position to kind of exclusively work on this with the listing agent, compared to it remaining on market and having the possibility that they would accept an offer. So I had that conversation with the listing agent last week. They fully understand what this would be. We'll put out the good faith effort through the appraisal process and then seeing if and how we can settle it at a price that works for the board, works for the community. If it doesn't, then we would back out of the process. They would relist it and be able to react to one of the offers that they actually already have.
Would they be, is the realtor, I'm asking our realtor, would they be required to disclose that the adjacent property is being looked at as a fire?
So the adjacent property right now is already owned by the township. There has been talk of it and that is public knowledge.
Right.
So would they specifically have to disclose that it's gonna possibly be a firehouse? I don't believe so, according to the disclosure laws right now. Mark, come on out.
Should, this whole deal come to fruition and you acquire that property, is Bernathen gonna be on the mortgage? How is that gonna work? You're combined, for the rest of these plans, you're incorporated with Bernathen 75-25.
Well, that hasn't been established yet, Mark.
Well, I know it's not, has anyone thought of that?
This we're seeking as Lower Moreland Township.
Okay.
To take an action here.
Yeah.
On behalf of the Lower Moreland Township.
Okay.
So hang on, hold 1 second, Mark. There's multiple options. We need to weigh it out, but we need to see what that price is first. That's gonna be the key step.
But no, that's my first question is, are they involved with the monies? So, all right, thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the room? Anybody online? See anybody? Perfect. I'd like a motion to approve resolution number 2450, or actually, I'm going to make the motion to approve resolution number 2450 to authorize the acquisition of 2671 Huntingdon Pike as described.
Second, the motion's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 2450 to authorize acquisition of 2671 Huntingdon Pike as described. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you.
Next item on my agenda for this evening is the local share account grant application resolution. Chris, I'm going to let you do a brief overview on this.
Sure. So this gets us back to the A and C parcel. There's a grant program, the local share account, which you've heard us talk about many times in this room. Property acquisition is one of the eligible expenses for that. So we think at the very minimal cost to submit an application, it makes sense to do that. I will caution that we should not set our hopes that this is going to work. We submitted a 2013 local share account grant, which the Commonwealth Financing Authority has not yet met to be able to review.
2013?
Wow. 2023.
2023. There we go.
Wow. 2024 submitting that. I don't want to set any expectation because it's at their quarterly meeting schedule. If we know that they're already have a backlog of grant applications, doing another one, but it can't hurt if they somehow get through that and are able to get through the ANC process and we know what the dollar value is, we will be able to offset on behalf of both us and Bernathen Borough the acquisition cost of the property. So ultimately, this is a resolution that is required for the grant application, which would designate Commissioner KURITZ and myself as the signatures for all grant applicants.
So Chris, is this worth modifying to include both parcels potentially?
No, and the reason for that is the timing. If we're going to do 2671, I'd imagine that will have to happen in the next couple of weeks. I think it would be very unfair to the family selling the property through the estate that if this grant happens, it's going to take the better part of a year. So we wouldn't be able to make the purchase prior to finding out about the grant. It's the exact issue that the school district had when they had to authorize the stormwater work on the same program in advance of finding out about it. So it just doesn't make sense to expose ourselves. So we'll look at other financing or creative funding options for 2671 if that does come together.
Sounds good. Any questions from the board on this? Anything from the public? I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 2451 as described.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 2451 as described. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hear any opposed? Any opposed? No, you guys have it. Thank you, commissioners. Next item.
All right, that takes me to the public safety reports. First up is Chief Smith. Thought you were.
All right, so another busy month, and again, get rolling out of the summer months, so over 1,600 calls for service. Some staffing updates for us. 2 of our 3 new officers that we hired back in June are moving on to their solo phase of their training, so they're very close to being full-fledged officers and done their field training. The other one will be in another 2 weeks. The civil service process for our lieutenant's position is complete. List has been certified by the Civil Service Commission. Great news is, which, these make me very proud of all the officers we have here, specifically our supervisors. Got very good feedback from the group that handled it for us. Said we have some great leadership coming up through our ranks, obviously. Sergeant Julia Huddick did finish level 1. That would be my recommendation for the position. She does come in to this position with over 18 years of service here at Lower Moreland. Various roles, community policing, handles our field training program now. And just excited to have her in place and get me some extra help there. That would be great. Theft from autos and our theft of autos continues to go on. Again, this is a regional problem. It's not just focused on Huntingdon Valley, Lower Moreland area. We are now up to 6 vehicles since June. Every single one of them has been left unlocked with the keys in the car. The last 2 were from the exact same driver. So same persons, both cars.
At different times, Chief, or at the same time?
Same time, same night.
So they were taken the same night?
Correct.
Wow.
Again, our theft from all vehicles, the same thing has been going on. They go around, they'll check door handles, so lock your car, please keep your keys inside, keep your valuables inside. The good news is we have made 1 arrest, several others are identified. I can't say that one arrest has led to this, but we haven't had any since we made that arrest. It is someone that we feel was very heavily involved in many of these. So it was a very great job by our detectives. We are looking at some of the trends, trying to get with some surrounding departments to try and get some details going so we can hopefully make sure this does stop, or at least moves to other areas, not ours. And we're obviously doing some increased patrols in our unmarked vehicles and everything to try and quell some of this as well. Looked into some other things, but we are still putting it out on social media. Word of mouth at our community events. We're continuing to tell everybody, lock your cars, keep your keys inside. I did request some quotes for mailers, but they get very expensive, and the people, unfortunately, that are doing this are the ones that are completing them anyway. So it's a very delicate thing because it is very cost prohibitive. Bus patrol program, we are at 299 violations since the first day of school. So in 1 month at school, we are 299 violations with bus patrol program.
This is people who pass.
Passing the school buses, the stop sign activated, and
299.
Did you have a expectation?
I did not expect that, because we do, we do honestly get a couple complaints maybe a year. We certainly don't get almost 300 complaints.
The patrol people said they expect high numbers.
Wow.
And this is shocking.
Yes.
And the district put out that card, kind of
District
to warn,
we put it
you know,
on social
warn people,
media, telling people
don't
that,
do that, you know, this is what's in place.
so
And what's the fine on that?
it's $300 civil fine. So there's no points, it doesn't affect their license, doesn't go to their insurance company. It's a civil fine. They get a link to the violation. They can actually view themselves going through the school's sign, school bus stop sign. And they're not all one location, there's various locations, some a little higher than others, but they're throughout the entire township. So
Have any been challenged and?
we did have just one person come in and just didn't believe they did it. We directed them to the website and said, you can put your violation right on there. They admitted they were the one driving the car, but didn't feel they did it. But it's hard to debate when it's right on the track. I didn't know that was. But no, but I mean, the court process of this, so it used to be that if someone tried to request a hearing on these matters, it would go to our local district justice. The officers would be tied up a little more. The state actually put it in that the first part of that process is handled by the state PennDOT attorney first. So if that process then goes through, then it would come back to us, but usually it doesn't do that. We've talked to surrounding departments and they don't have many of these even coming now at this point. So
When you first presented, I was shocked that they were paying for 100% of the cameras and all that, but now I understand why they're able to do that. That's unbelievable.
We get this money.
Yeah, that's my question. What is
that
the
one
percentage
first month.
that comes back to the police
It's not a
department?
percentage, it's a dollar amount. I believe ours is $25 the township gets as part of that fine. The school district gets another portion, and then bus patrol, obviously, the company that does it investing.
We're the smallest.
We're the smallest portion of that.
As is the.
So. Yes, yes.
So they should throw that.
So again, it's a zero cost, other than we do have, our traffic officers are the ones that evaluate the violations, make sure they're legitimate.
Those numbers in my-
They do not approve every single one. If they're close, they have not approved them. If it's something where it's, you know, debatable whether the person saw it or could have reacted in time, they are doing a very good job, you know, weeding out some of those.
And that's reviewed by our officers.
By our
correct?
officers, correct. And then they approve it and it gets sent back to bus patrol and they send out the violation.
Interesting. And that's all electronic, that process? They
Yep,
send
it's
from
all
the
electronic. They
computer?
send us a link. We review the videos and then approve or deny it. And if we deny it, we just have to say why we denied it. And then get sent back to them and the rest is handled by them. So.
Interesting.
No solo police department community events in September, but we did partner with quite a few and provided our presence there. So there was the Philmont Country Club did their touch a truck event. Obviously the Books and Brews, we had some officers out walking around, not inviting, of course. The Lower Moreland High School Color Run, again, we did our normal thing. We lead and follow and provide a presence in the parking lot. We were also out walking around at the Township Movie Under the Stars. Another positive thing for us, mental health, obviously, in this profession is very important. So we had several of our officers complete resiliency training. It's not only going to help them with their own mental health and dealing with some of the stressors we have, but it's going to make them better officers for our community, give them training, different lessons and things they can use to help our community when they're suffering from incidents that they're going to increase their mental stress. And if you have noticed, we're obviously wearing our pink badges this month. All month of October is for breast cancer awareness, so they are real, they're metal. So you see them, we're not fake police officers, or just pink badges for breast cancer awareness. So, we do get pretty much all of the officers doing it. There's a couple that aren't too keen on it, but I think it's a good thing. Any questions or concerns?
Any questions from the board, public? Thank you, Chief Smith. Next up is Fire Marshal Shalley.
Evening, Commissioners. A couple quick reviews. We had an after-action report with Montgomery County EMS, the Fire Department, Granath, and Lower Moreland Township. Lower Moreland Emergency Management after the Artist Senior Living issue or one that we had back in July. Happy to report that all the residents are now back in and doing very well. The county came down and actually ran the Zoom meeting. We had officials from Artist Senior Living there, and we went over our strengths, our weaknesses, good points and bad points. So it was a very productive meeting.
When was that, Bob?
I didn't put the date on there. That was what, 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, about 2 weeks ago.
But the incident happened in summer.
July.
July, right?
Yeah, it was in July. We did have a Reddit's conference in October. I'll have a lot more to do. We had over 470 attendees, our biggest event ever. And I'll have more information on that next month. We had an issue at the Lower Moreland High School, the new high school, with some malfunctioning alarms. We found out that there was a section of alarms that were highly sensitive. So Siemens did come out. The school district was very proactive on it, and that so far, knock wood, has been rectified.
One of the things that triggered it, a balloon pop or something like that?
Yeah, we had numerous. We had a heat detector go off above a IT box that was legit. We had a balloon that knocked one off. We had a boiler, 2 boilers that let off at 3:15 and at 3:16 a.m. in the morning. And then we had the section of detectors that took them 2 days to find the actual section. It was in a row, and they finally found it.
So when you go to kind of boot up a new building, there's
There's 700 detectors in there, so there's going to be a couple.
Lots of tweaking
there. Oh, there's still some tweaking, yeah. But they're very proactive. Lance is on it. Mark McWing came out at 3 o'clock in the morning for it with us, so they're very proactive on getting it done. We did have an incident at the middle school. We did have a fire alarm, ended up being an AC motor at the middle school. Also, now I'm working on the incident action plans for this different schools and for the different medical facilities. I'm reviewing those as well. And we had a small incident in Bernathen, which I let Mark and the Bernathen chiefs know, where we're getting ready to some old fentanyl. But we took care of that with the hazmat team and the nurses up there in Huntingdon Valley, and the Huntingdon Valley Surgical Center. Any questions for me?
The one question, the fire code regarding fire pits, because we're going in the fall season, I know a lot of people are gonna be burning and so on. Can you just review that briefly, just so it's out there?
25 feet away from the home. It's got to be in a approved container, which is like a chimenea. Or if they build a pit with stone around it, they have a screen over top of it. They can't burn yard waste. But if they burn sticks, and some logs, that's fine. But if there is a smoke addition, when there is a neighbor does complain, then in the code it says that the police department, call the police department first, call the fire department. It's an officer's investigation, and we have the right to put that in.
Gotcha.
So it could be a nuisance. So yeah, we have a couple of those usually now coming up to this season.
Yeah, without doubt. All right, thank you very much.
Bob, do you know how far, there's those PVC fences? How far does that have to be away from those fences? Is it
Usually 25 feet away from any
25 feet
combustible
away
or
from-
combustible flammable material.
Okay.
Yeah. And we would also recommend a bucket of a garden hose, bucket of sand while you're there.
Or an extinguisher or something?
Yeah.
And Bob, you're also working on making sure, I know, because you discussed it at Safe Schools Committee, are you going to make sure, you scheduled all of their,
All the Knox boxes.
all the Knox boxes
The keys have been updated.
and all the drills for the school?
Yeah.
You
Starting all the drills as well.
thank you.
Yeah.
Stay on top of me for that, okay?
Trying to.
Any
I
other
know.
questions from the commissioners? Anything public online? Nope. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chief Showmaker, you're up.
Good evening, everyone. For a change, I'm going to be very, very brief. My monthly report, my joint report has been submitted to both communities. You have that in front of you. With a number of bullet points, just to highlight a few things. We've been meeting with both municipalities, the managers, to discuss funding strategies. We're putting together some ideas on that and seeing how we're going to attack that in the future. I've met with the Bernathen Fire Company Chief and President and gave them an update on where we're at with things as far as the trucks and everything like that, as well as their municipal officials. I'm happy to report that the tower ladder is currently in Pennsylvania at the Glick facility out in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, getting the final details and equipment put on it that we changed out. I expect that to be here within the next 2 weeks. So hopefully by next meeting, we will have it here. And we will begin a rigorous training program on that with the 2 fire companies and get that truck into service as quickly as we possibly can, as long as everybody's proficient at it.
we've been doing a lot of interviewing for hiring career staff up the Bernathen side of the house for the EMS people. And I've been meeting with the office manager as well up there and trying to come up with a solution to migrate both organizations into one reporting system. As you know, when we did the analysis and what we were able to pull out of the analytics from it, it was different from both. So now we're going to try to migrate them both into the same program. We're working with both groups to do that. It's a little bit of a task, but we will get there, and that's a goal for early next year to be completed. And as Fire Marshal mentioned, numbers were out at the EDITS training that took place in Montgomery County. I got to tell you, it's one of the best programs I've ever been to. There was a very, very dynamic mental health program that was put on at the end of the day that I think we all took a lot out of, and it's something we take for granted. Just to give you a quick overview of the calls for the Bernathen side, I'm going to give you that because I think it's fair that you know what's going on there as well as here. For emergency medical calls in Bernathen, 7 for the month of September. In Lower Moreland, 101. Outside of that, 67. 175 total for the month. And currently, this is a little bit off because it's a little bit past. We are at, this says 1,580 for the year. I can tell you we're over 1,600 at this point, well over it. Out of those calls, 77 of them are second call or third call deep calls that we covered with the second ambulance and the power shift ambulance. So, you know, and there's 50 of those that we transported to the hospital as well. For fire calls for Bernathen, 5 in the borough of Bernathen, 34 in Lower Moreland, 7 outside for a total of 46 calls. And then for the Huntingdon Valley side, 39 calls in Lower Moreland for Huntingdon Valley, 2 into Bernathen, 4 outside for 45 for the month, and they are currently at 339 calls as of the date of this report. That concludes my report. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from the board, from the public? Thank you, Chief Showmaker.
Thank you.
That brings me to my liaison reports. First up is the Huntingdon Valley Library. They've had great events with the movie Under the Stars night. Well attended from everything I heard. Great time as usual with that. They're going to be at the Trunk or Treat coming up at the middle of this month. They have a bunch of great events going on this month. Go ahead to the HV Library website, check that out. Their board meeting is on Thursday night, open to the public. Anybody's welcome to attend. Second liaison report is for the Civil Service Committee. We met, as Chief Smith indicated, the list was certified for the new LT position, and as identified by Chief Smith. That is all I have for my liaison reports.
Thank you, Commissioner.
President KURITZ.
Thank you. Next chair recognizes Commissioner Elson, Chair of the Public Authority Committee. Commissioner Hill.
We have an agreement for the Lower Moreland Township Authority to offer a reduced payment to us, or will be giving our payment to the city. I don't know, it's complicated. I mean, I could go through the whole thing, but the bottom line is the city of Philadelphia has issued the village at Huntingdon Valley a bill in excess of $100,000 for their stormwater management, which they had no idea was coming, and we have decided to forego our payment from them, our payments from them, so that they can use that to offset their bill to Philadelphia. The effect on us at $75 a household is minimal. The effect to them is quite a bit. So we have decided to do that. Solicitor Rice has prepared an agreement that states that effect, and once the arrearages are paid off, they will then be submitting to us again, to Huntingdon Valley for our stormwater fee. At whatever rate it is. So I'm sure there are questions.
The only minor point of clarification is that we didn't want to let them off the hook for the township fee. So they will remit that to us still. And then we will calculate, make sure that everybody paid. If anybody didn't, whatever total value they paid for the year, we would remit back that would become the basis for them to pay down what they owe to Philadelphia. And then exactly what Commissioner Housen said, once the arrearages are paid off, then there's a delta between what they owe Philadelphia on an annual basis and what they pay us. We would send back to them just the Philadelphia amount and leave the rest in the township's stormwater.
Maybe I missed it, but can you just explain how they got arrears? Like, how did the situation develop?
They have a not possible anywhere else in Lower Moreland issue that the HOA owns several acres in Philadelphia, and their stormwater improvements are on that acreage. So Philadelphia, as a first-class city, had the ability to implement a stormwater fee like a decade ago. So there is no mailing address for the parcel that the HOA owns. So a bill has been generated this whole time going nowhere, and then finally got to the HOA within the last year or two.
Yeah.
And they had that like, oh my God moment, here's the amount of money that we owe. We had no idea. How does it even apply? Is it possibly too high? But Philadelphia determines their rate on a gross area for the property, which is a very small component because of the acreage, does build up a bill that's many hundreds of dollars a month. There's then a component that is a much higher billing for total impervious on the property. The property is almost entirely open space, save for the outfall structure of the stormwater improvements. But essentially, it's just that bill that's $700, $800, $900 a month for the better part of a decade, adding up with never reaching them. And the city is a bureaucratic challenge to be able to get to a person who can help you with this, because the fee is implemented by Philadelphia Water Department. The fee is collected by the Water Revenue Bureau, who the two of those agencies, when I talk to each, say we do not talk to one another. Like, there is not a contact, we just collect the bill. And then the legal department is the entity that will handle any fee reductions or allow for payment plans. But they won't start payment plans if your fees are not fully paid from what is past due. So it's kind of this like vicious circle of not being able to reach a person who can help with this. We talked about this internally. Commissioner Blanton and Tim Woodrow and I had met with the HOA many months ago and kind of brainstormed if it was even appropriate for us to be helpful. And then if the answer was yes, how could we? And we were able to set the context that this is not a scenario that is repeatable anywhere else in Lower Moreland. So given all of those factors and wanting to be equitable across all properties in Lower Moreland that pay this fee, they continue paying it, but because they have this unique scenario, we'll remit what they've paid back to them. And the agreement requires them to pay what we've sent back to Philadelphia under terms that they will tell us they've agreed to. That's going to take the better part of a decade to make up on. But once that is done, that's when we get into that kind of post-arrearages phase, where what they pay us is more than they would owe Philadelphia on an annual basis. So therefore, at that point, it makes sense that we continue offsetting what goes to Philadelphia because they contribute almost nothing to Lower Moreland. But the general premise of the fee is that all properties are kind of jointly sharing in this shared municipal obligation. Therefore, it wouldn't make sense to let them off the hook for the payment. So that's where the difference between what they would pay to Philadelphia, the greater amount they would pay us, that would stay in the stormwater fund to be able to participate in the project costs that we have for all the things that we're doing.
Yeah, I did.
I'm not sure I understand it.
I think to simplify it, high level it. Yeah. So this parcel in Lower Moreland, their stormwater management exists in Philadelphia. They're pushing their water that way, right? Philadelphia has fees for that. If they were not aware of that, they're in this situation. What we determined was in some part because of that, allowing them to use this money that is meant for stormwater management to pay that off makes sense. Like that's how their system works. They're not contributing to Lower Moreland's water issue. At the same time, they are part of Lower Moreland, and collectively we do work together to help the whole township, right? Some areas are affected more than others. So the decision was then for them to keep paying the fee to us as every resident of Lower Moreland does, but that we are going to remit that back to them to allow them to pay this off. This fee that they were unaware of, that they had no way of knowing about until recently, until such time that they have paid that down enough to where as Chris said, the balance will be, there'll still be an amount of money that will stay at Lower Moreland because the fee for Lower Moreland is X and the fee for Philadelphia is X minus a certain percentage.
I got you on that. So here's my concerns with this. There's how many houses there? 176, I think? 80 in that community.
It's just 80 total. It amounts to about $22,000, $22,400. Is the amount we're foregoing.
That's the amount they pay the township annually for the stormwater fee.
We're giving up 22K a year, right?
Yeah.
So you have 80 houses, you have 145,000 currently outstanding. So you're looking at roughly, 1,800 in special assessment per home if we were not to do this. And right now, we're having a 10-year return on this, which doesn't make sense that the HOA was unaware of this for X number of years. I don't see why we're spreading that cost amongst all the other township residents
You're not.
for this. We're giving them back the 22K per year, right?
They're the amount that they have paid.
That they have paid. Yeah,
100% of that per year
Yes, correct.
until they're caught up.
Yes.
But don't we have any stormwater obligations from that community within the township?
No, because their water goes to this parcel that is in Philadelphia.
In dumps, everything.
Correct.
It is in a unique, unrepeatable situation, which is why we are recommending this. We talked about it with the authority back in July. The only reason that the board has been added as a signature to it is because the township's lease agreement with the authority has us collect the fee on their behalf.
So just high level to make sure I understand. Their water goes to Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Right, so in theory, the stormwater fee that we're collecting, their water is not coming into our township, so they could argue to say, well, our water, we shouldn't be paying this fee because our water is not going there, it's actually going over here. So we're gonna say, yeah, you're still part of the township, you're gonna give us the money, but until it's paid off, which is gonna take a period of time, because it's only $22,000 a year, it's gonna take, what is that, like 8 years to do it. Then that money's just gonna go over there. That's kind of what you're saying, right? And the theory being is that their stormwater isn't coming into the town. That's the main point.
Generally, yes. And that we also are hopeful on their behalf that they will have to pay Philadelphia less than $145,000 once they see their way through that bureaucratic disaster and work on
They're in a stuck place right now where they can't really arbitrate that until they start making motion there, and this is their path to make a motion there.
And we would, and there's zero impact of their stormwater for Lower Moreland, because, if it's, I don't know, should we be taking a small percentage of that still? I mean, I don't know where.
Well, I was gonna ask, how old are them pipes? Could they be getting rainwater into them and then we're paying for it?
No one is measuring the amount of water that determines their bill to Philadelphia.
It's just on geographical area, correct? And impervious coverage.
The fund raises $1.2 million a year. This is immaterial to our operations and has already been vetted through the.
And there's no other scenario that would exist that would be similar, that there would be a similar argument, not necessarily for stormwater, but for something else to say, hey, we're not contributing to this, and I still don't understand how the HOA is this, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the time, we didn't assess any other situation in this realm within Lower Moreland where this exists. Where some parcel within Lower Moreland has another parcel in another township or city where their stormwater is pushed in that direction and would otherwise be ineligible or claim ineligibility to pay this fee.
What is their annual bill within Philadelphia for this?
I would have to pull the bill off the website. Annually, you're probably looking at $10,000 to $13,000. I'd have to pull the bill. It's less than $1,000 a month, so it's going to be less than 12.
I think when we were talking at the authority, it was about 700 and something.
And that's a bill from a little while ago, so I don't know if the rates have increased to some extent.
And when did this go into effect? I thought it was only 3 years ago or 4 years ago.
Philadelphia's had a stormwater fee since 2013.
So they've had it for a decade, where we've only had it for the last, what? Two years. All right.
Other questions from the public? Anybody online? It took me a while to get my head around this, so nobody needs to know. I'd like to make a motion to approve the stormwater fee reimbursement agreement as described.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded to approve the stormwater fee reimbursement agreement as described. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. Thank you, commissioners. And thank you, Commissioner Blanton, for working with the villages
Yeah, of
and
course.
HLA and whatnot, meeting with them.
The next item is the authorization to build the Chapel Hill plant clarifier upgrades. As we put in our budget and as we've discussed earlier, we are going to need to do some upgrades for the Chapel Hill plant clarifiers. And I'd like to authorize a bid. Does anyone have any questions about? All we're doing is advertising to for a bid for these clarifiers. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to authorize advertising the bid for the Chapel Hill plant clarifier upgrades.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded to authorize advertising the bid for the Chapel Hill plant clarifier upgrades. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed? Yes, thank you, commissioners.
Okay, the next item up is the Historic Architectural Review Board, which just met last night. There were 3 applications for signage at the meeting, and we found all of their signage acceptable. I believe you have pictures of them, and the poly sign is actually already up on the street on Huntingdon Pike. We're always happy to have an ice cream place in town. I am, how about the rest of you?
Yeah, one at the fire prevention open house. Ice cream's really good.
And then we've got a new place called Trisha's Garden, which they're going to be doing, basically flower arranging and doing lessons for flowers. And that is in the back of the, what is it called?
The Valley Courtyard.
The Valley Courtyard, yeah, in that back building, that has a whole glass front. So it says where Stitch Fix is, but it's where Stitch Fix was before they moved to the front, before they moved to Glenside. And then the third one is Atomic Beauty Bar, which is taking over where Salon Plush was. This woman owns another place down in South Philly. Now she's gonna start a hair salon here on Huntingdon Pike. It's basically all the same. You know, all the signs are going to be similarly placed. So does anyone have any questions?
Nope.
No.
Okay, anybody in the building or online? Okay. I don't believe I need to do anything to it.
Yes, we do need, since the board is the entity that issues the certificate of appropriateness, we would need a motion.
Okay, can I do the 3 at once?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to move that the certificate date for 2401, 2402, and 2403 for the signage for those 3 properties be accepted.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded for the signage for 24-01, 24-02, 24-03. From the Harbor Board, as Monday, October 7, 2024, meeting be accepted. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. You guys have it. Thank you.
The sewer department report is here. We are moving forward with new new pieces and parts in different places all over the place. And now the clarifiers are gonna be coming on as well, so there's a lot going on in the sewer department, and Steve has done a wonderful job managing it. Does anyone have any questions on the sewer department report? We can make Steve stand up. No?
I do have a question. I'm not sure if this is the right place to ask it, but we talked, I think, 2 months ago about like overages on certain water flows, and we were talking about like we had a longer discussion around pipes and pipe maintenance, things like that. Is that a quarterly? Is that something assessed quarterly, or is that monthly? And I was just curious where we are at, if we just passed a quarter, if we're expecting
So
overages like we had.
We follow Philadelphia's fiscal year, which is July through June.
Okay.
So they assess those on a quarterly basis.
Okay.
And if we have several exceedances in one quarter, you pay on the highest one. So right now, from that one high exceedance that dates back to that January. The only other exceedance that we've had is one that we're challenging that was not the same premise as what goes through Beth Ayres, but was actually a meter read of the same, 0.74 million gallons a day. Every day for a month. Yeah, and it was.
Which is physically.
Yeah, like May into June.
Yeah.
So now that we're into October, we are into the new year for. So we have not learned of any new exceedances yet, but I'm not sure we may.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and they are reported to us on what frequency, or they report to us in like in real time.
Quarter.
They are reported to us. Yeah.
And then Mike McCree, who's the authority engineer, checks in with Philadelphia for all of the authorities' quarterly meetings to check on all of the meter readings to see where we fall within the agreement. So that would be another trigger point that we might see something like, hey, heads up, here's one that maybe comes.
So we might know in November, the assessment is probably happening now. We would know in November if their Phillips first quarter, there was an exceedance.
Yeah, it would have been their first quarter.
Yeah, okay, all right, I just wanted to make sure I understood the timing. It seemed like something maybe to just be aware of. Thank you.
And on that note, the Lower Moreland Township Authority meeting is actually next week.
Tomorrow.
Oh, wait, tomorrow night. I will be there. Tomorrow night, I got it. And as you know, the hard meeting was last night. The Historical Architectural Review Board is going to pick up again on the plaque project for historic houses that we discussed 2 years ago, I think, at one of these meetings. We will, the first meeting for that is coming up in November. And we're going to meet at the first Monday in November at 6 p.m. at the library. If there is a HARB meeting that night, then we will move it here to the township meeting. But since it is not an official HARB event, but the majority of the HARB board does want to take part in the plaque project, which, if you remember, we will be researching historic houses and offering them a plaque for their property, so that we can identify and eventually create a walking trail of the historic properties here.
I'd like to do that. That's great.
Thank you. So if anybody would like to be a volunteer on that committee, you're more than welcome. Contact me and I'll set you up. But again, it's the first Monday in November at 6 p.m. at the library. Okay. And that completes my report and my liaison positions.
Thank you, Commissioner Housen. Next, the chair recognizes Commissioner Blanton, Chair of the Ordinance Committee. Commissioner Blanton.
So first item on my agenda is to review zoning hearing board agenda for October. They'll be meeting next Thursday, and I'll ask to read through all 5 applications. If there's any questions, please take note, and then I'll ask some of our zoning officers to come up to help answer any questions should we have any. So the first application on October's agenda is application number 24-19. This is the continuation of Joshua Matthew of 2466 High Road. He seeks a variance to permit a 6-foot tall front yard fence where a maximum of 4 feet is permitted. And they're also seeking relief from the requirement that a front yard fence be 50% open. This is an application that was continued from July. The second application number 24-20. This is also a continuation of Ismet Ajvazi, of 2456 High Road. They're seeking the same variance as 2466 High Road. This application was also continued from July. Application number 24-26, the continuation of 3475 HP LLC. They're seeking relief to convert auto shop bays to a convenience store and add a 55 square foot vestibule, They are seeking a special exception to expand an existing non-conforming use. Additionally, they seek a variance to allow 24 parking spaces where 28 are required. This application was continued from August. The board had also authorized Solicitor Rice to oppose this project by seeking certain conditions. Number 4, application number 24-32. The application of Michael and Ellen White of 1387 Greenewalt Road. They seek a variance to permit an in-ground swimming pool, deck, coping, steps, shed, and equipment pad requiring 28% lot coverage, where 25% is permitted. And finally, application number 24-33. This is the application of Tomlinson Center LLC of 78 Tomlinson Road. They seek a variance to have a lesser amount of parking than the required 29 spaces. First question I have is just, Solicitor Rice, do we need to reauthorize you to participate in next week's meeting?
No.
Okay.
No, that's, yes, it's continued. I'm gonna want to talk about that in executive session too.
Understood.
After the meeting.
Okay. Any questions from the board on any of the applications for October's agenda?
Do we know why 2466 and 2456, are they next door to each other?
They are next door to each other.
Why they both want 6-foot fences?
They,
It's on the curve, a red line.
Yeah.
And then new construction houses with the bigger
Isn't that
basin.
where the fire was at, Bob?
this is where the fire was at, and why it was continued. That happened the night
The
before.
houses are sideways, so they kind of consider it like their side yard. So they want to enclose it because of the way their house is positioned. And their
Okay.
children.
Car noise and stuff like that. It does make
It
sense.
does make sense. When people are driving down the road, I guess lights to.
I looked it up, but I just couldn't picture it.
So
Okay.
I'll send you a screenshot.
I trust you all. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Okay, if not, I'll move to discuss the decisions that were made in the September meeting. There were 6. The first one was for application number 24-24. This is the application of Venetian Properties LLC for 2344 Belmont Avenue. They sought variances and a special exception to prevent expansion of the non-conforming structure in the floodplain and to reduce parking. 2 variances and a special exception were granted. Application number 24-25. This is the application of Andre Levitsky and Maria Vetson of 573 Phillip Road. They sought variances to allow a 901 square foot patio, which encroached into the side yard setback. Both variances were denied. Application number 24-28 was the application of the Pennypack Trust. They sought variances to permit taller signage on the Turwood and Creek Road frontages. Both variances were granted. Application number 24-29. The application of Steve Bleckman of 174 Pheasant Lane. He sought variances to permit a deck with a reduced side yard setback and increased lot coverage. Both variances were denied. On application number 24-30, the application of Tadas Brusakis of 1062 Sorrel Lane. He sought a variance to permit 28% lot coverage where 25% was permitted for an above ground swimming pool. This variance was granted. And finally, application number 24-31, the application of Clevis and Zonia Golani of 232 Grove Kirk Drive. They sought a variance to permit a 972 square foot in-law suite. This variance was granted. Any questions about the decisions from the September zoning hearing board meeting? Any questions from the audience or online? If not, then that concludes my agenda item for the zoning hearing board agenda and decisions. My liaison report is the zoning hearing board, and so I just report on that, and that concludes my report.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Blanton. Next, the chair recognizes Commissioner Page, Chair of the Public Works Committee. Commissioner
Thank
Page.
you. Thank you, Denise. Item W, Public Works Department, kick it over to Steve.
I'll just give you a couple things. Obviously working on our 2025 capital budget requests. Most of the year. October, we always do a lot of crack sealing October with the leaves falling early. It's going to be a little difficult, but we'll be out there. My nose are out there milling and filling a lot of potholes. We've done just about every pothole in each ward. This year we went out with the mill head, milled them out, big squares and filled them in, get those sealed up, but those patches are a whole lot better than just throwing asphalt in and tamping and walking away. Getting that ready for the winter. We put up the high school color run banner this month, the fire prevention banner, the fall banners on Huntingdon Pike. Leaf lighting will start October 21st. We've already sent the machine out though, because I'm sure everyone has seen piles out already. So it's easy enough. Our one-man machine has been out. We'll try to stay ahead of it, but the schedule is October 21st, the first week. Anything else?
Two questions for you. Byberry and Walsh, there was an open road project there where they had to cut out a section. Do you have any clue what that? Walsh.
Was that us? Yeah, we cut it out and then we filled it in.
Resealed.
Yeah, we milled the whole intersection. We have a lot of trouble at adjoining intersections, carriage and Huntingdon Pike, Walsh and Byberry. It's where we get the majority of our potholes and it cracks up. So yeah, we cut out those whole areas.
Yeah, it came out nice after it was done. Just wasn't one of
Guys did a
that.
really good.
And then the one other question I have was in front of the high school. When is that scheduled for completion?
I think that's what.
Well, they really don't know, Joe. They're trying to work with Pico.
So
Right now, their biggest challenge is that they can't do the final restoration because there's a Pico gas line that is not
Yes.
buried deep enough.
I believe they were supposed to start that this Monday.
Yeah.
So they have about a 2-week time frame to redo that Pico line and then March you'll be back.
Yeah, they'll have to clean up some of the curbing that was put in, and then do a final mill and.
Yeah, that's.
So
the
that'll
curve
finish,
goes out,
that'll
so they
finish
can
the
move that.
turn lanes. Then, as we did, Commissioner KURITZ mentioned earlier, all of the hedge crossing infrastructure there's delays on the arrival of all of that. So what they're expecting those in January and then have to do all the work to install those.
But the turn lane and the actual piece there, we're hoping maybe by Thanksgiving.
The paving, I would imagine the PennDOT done before, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so and
As
just
soon as Pico gets the
Pico
gas
first,
line.
then the school can authorize proceeding.
They're really trying. Jamie Lynch was, he said they're really trying to work together. Steve, we thank you for working with the district. And we want to thank you.
Just the status of the Ridgeway Playground.
Oh, yeah, so I did hear from our vendor that actually we might get it early towards the end of October, so we'll be down there, we'll get the old piece out, we'll get it at the area all prepped. As soon as I get the date of when they're coming in to build, we'll post something on the township website that.
And the payment for that was in the bill list. So we saw from the approval last month, we're able to turn that around based off of what they.
That was great. Steve, I have to thank you, Tim Castorino, the entire Public Works Department for helping us, with our events, and you guys always do a fabulous job. And I know you're working hard now. Trunk or treat, so thank you.
October's a big month.
Yes, it is, and we really all appreciate all of you.
No problem, no.
I want to thank Steve and Chief Smith. With their help, we had a lot of complaints with the start of school with cutting through Mary Ave from Huntingdon Pike and from Red Line, cars speeding, flying around the curve. Steve and his team added a crosswalk course for the kids. That wasn't helping, so after more complaints, Chief Smith and his team with their presence there, Steve reacted the same day, went and hung a sign, right?
Some additional pad ahead signs.
Yeah.
Before the curve.
For visuals for the cars coming around the curve, because there's students walking there now, because now they have to get to Murray Ave,
Right.
so they're crossing through there. So thank you to,
No
a
problem.
lot of the residents were grateful that you guys did react so quick.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Next item is my liaison, HBAA, soccer is full blown fall sport right now, some basketball stuff going on. They have an event coming up at Lower Moreland Park. It is the 19th of October, Fall Fest. Starts at 9 o'clock. Steve's gang will be out there helping out. Moon bounces, tables, vendors set up, so it's a great day. Hopefully get good weather. And I'll be attending our next board meeting on October 17th. It's always the third Thursday of the month. And they are asking the public, please do not come to any of their Belleville Center Park, Lower Moreland Park, Ridgeway, and hang or distribute anything political. It's happened several times. We had the cops out there. They asked them to leave. So they're just asking the public, just keep it kid friendly and the politics away from the ball fields.
Well, we also have a regulation commissioner in our parks, a park regulation. Park regulation. Chris, you want to touch on that? It's just not allowed.
Correct. There's an ordinance that dates back to maybe mid-80s, early 90s, somewhere in there, that precludes any political meetings in our designated township parks. So if you're a group of 4 people that want to get together and have a conversation under a pavilion at a picnic table, there's nothing that precludes you from doing that. If you designate a location to come pick something up and you're in conflict with several hundred kids and families that are in and out of a park facility for soccer or baseball, whatever it may be, I think that's when you kind of rise to that. It's more of what the ordinance foresees and tries to preclude. So that is the regulation that you have in books.
Does that apply to school district property also? Or just
That is your parks ordinance.
just the parks? There we go.
Thank you. Thank you. Manager Hoffman.
That concludes the items on my agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Pace. That concludes our agenda items for this evening. Now we'll open up for non-public participation on non-agenda items. Does anyone have any public comments? Would like to address the board in the room? Anyone on Zoom? Does someone have their?
Hi. Yeah, it was me, Laura Calfayan, and I didn't give my address last time, 3231 Maple Road. 2 things. It happened so fast at the end. The agenda item about the property at 2671 Huntingdon Pike. Did you guys just pass a motion to authorize the acquisition? I thought that the point was to authorize looking into, doing research, negotiating, or did you actually pass an?
Laura, I'll answer that for you. So the resolution we asked was to allow us to obtain an appraisal to determine what fair market value will be. There is no resolution passed to actually acquire the property. It'll allow us the first steps in trying to figure out the price.
Okay, that's what I thought, Joe. Thanks. But the wording was authorized acquisition, and that's what's in the agenda. So I was confused about that. And I don't know if you guys need to tweak the language, but that's what it says on the agenda. And I believe that that's what you read out as a motion and as an approval to authorize acquisition. That's for you guys to sort out. I'm just bringing it up.
Right now. Give me 1 second.
That is the language for the agenda item, and technically what the resolution does short of a declaration of taking and determining a purchase price. So the general phrase of authorizing acquisition is for us to engage to attempt to acquire and figure out those details. All of those details would need to come back to the board because, again, it includes the final number, it includes a settlement agreement, it includes a financing strategy. None of those things are in that resolution or have been done.
Okay. So my other comment is about the reapportionment, because there was an accusation that the complainants were politically motivated. I believe my name is on that list. And I just want to state that my opposition centered around 2 main points. First, that the date that it was originally meant to be, I guess, in place or enacted was in the middle of a cycle, rather than at the end, perhaps, of a presidential cycle, which would make more sense and probably be less confusing for the public. My other opposition was that the 2020 census, I don't believe, included the development at Pine and Red Lion, we have two major developments in place that we know are going to happen and add to our population in Ward 3 in particular. And it, again, to me, made much more sense for the township to wait until the 2030 census. And at that time, presumably those two developments would be fully occupied and those people might have registered to vote. So, you know, if you're upset about the cost to litigate, I'm sure that that must have gone back to the board to approve, and maybe that would have been the time to consider whether or not the argument was worth $20,000. I wasn't politically motivated, and I almost think that the comment accusing those who participated is equally a political statement, even more so. I just thought it was poorly timed, very, very poorly timed. And we've never done it before. We all know that these developments were in place and approved already by the time this all started. So that was my opposition. And that's all I wanted to say about it. So thank you so much for hearing me out. I appreciate all of your time.
Thank you for your
Thank you for your
comments.
comment. Anyone else?
No more, Commissioner Curtis.
Okay, that concludes our agenda items for this evening.
No,
Motion to adjourn.
talk to John
Oh,
after the meeting.
okay, motion to adjourn.
So,
Motion
Can't.
moved and seconded
It's
to
about
adjourn.
this, I can't talk.
I'm the lawyer talking to you.
Okay.